Have you ever wondered how a relatively small island nation came to dominate a quarter of the world's landmass? The story of the British Empire is one of ambition, innovation, conflict, and profound transformation, leaving an indelible mark on global history. If you look at Britain on a map today, you see an island defined by its coastlines. Yet the true story of Britain extends far beyond these familiar shores. Scattered across the globe are 14 remaining outposts, echoes of an empire that once ruled a quarter of the world's land and nearly a third of its people. Gibraltar, the Falklands, Bermuda. These are the last sentinels of a dominion that shaped the modern world. At its zenith, the British Empire was so vast, so sprawling, that the sun truly never set upon it. This remarkable achievement prompts a fundamental question for historians and students alike. How did a small island kingdom, once fractured and provincial, rise to become the most powerful empire in human history? This is the rise, reign, and reckoning of the British Empire, a journey through centuries of geopolitical shifts, economic innovation, and profound human impact. Long before the Union Jack ever flew over distant foreign shores, the very seeds of empire were sown within the British Isles themselves. England, armed with a burgeoning navy, a developing economy, and an ambition sharpened by centuries of internal and external conflict, systematically absorbed its neighbors. This process began with the conquest of Wales in the 13th century, followed by centuries of extending power into Ireland, often through brutal military campaigns and the imposition of English law and culture. The gaze then turned northward towards proud, unyielding Scotland. However, conquest would not be the only path to unification. Through a complex interplay of marriage, diplomacy, and political intrigue, the crowns of England and Scotland were united in 1603 under James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England. This personal union, known as the Union of the Crowns, marked a pivotal moment, laying the groundwork for a new vision of a unified British identity and outward expansion. With the Union of the Crowns, a new era of overseas exploration and colonization began. Charters were drawn, granting vast powers to private companies and adventurers. Figures like Sir Francis Drake and Martin Frobisher etched their legends across newly charted maps, embodying the spirit of daring exploration and privateering. These early attempts at empire, however, were often fraught with peril and uncertainty. The ill-fated colony of Roanoke, which vanished without a trace, serves as a stark reminder of the challenges faced by these pioneering efforts. Yet these failures provided crucial lessons, highlighting the need for more robust organization and sustained investment. The concept of the chartered company, a powerful entity granted monopolies and quasi-governmental powers by the crown, would soon emerge as the primary engine of imperial expansion. Trade, rather than direct conquest, would become the primary engine of the burgeoning British Empire. Queen Elizabeth I, recognizing the immense potential for wealth, granted royal monopolies to powerful entities like the East India Company in 1600 and the Levant Company. These were not mere trading businesses. They were formidable private armies, floating governments, and imperial pioneers in their own right. The East India Company, in particular, would evolve from a trading venture into a de facto ruling power in vast swathes of India. This era also saw the chilling prototype of plantation colonization emerge in Ulster, Northern Ireland. Protestant settlers from England and Scotland were systematically planted on confiscated lands, transforming the demographics and social structure of the region. This model, characterized by the displacement of indigenous populations and the imposition of new social hierarchies, would tragically echo across continents in subsequent centuries, from the Americas to Australia. By the late 1600s, the English crown began to seize and settle lands across the Atlantic with increasing vigor. Colonies bloomed in North America, from the Puritan settlements of New England to the agricultural plantations of the South. Simultaneously, lucrative sugar colonies were established in the West Indies. Some of these territories were founded through settlement, while others, like New York, were taken by force from rival European powers such as the Dutch. However, the empire's darkest and most profitable currency was human. The Royal African Company, chartered in 1660, became a key artery in the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans were forcibly torn from their homelands, subjected to unimaginable brutality, and transported across the Atlantic. Their lives were reduced to forced labor, their suffering fueling the immense profits that underpinned the burgeoning imperial economy. This systemic exploitation of human beings remains a profound and painful stain on the empire's legacy, shaping societies and economies on both sides of the Atlantic for centuries. While England thrived on its burgeoning overseas ventures, Scotland faced significant economic challenges. The disastrous Darien scheme, Scotland's ambitious attempt to forge an empire of its own in Panama, ended in disease, financial ruin, and national humiliation. This catastrophic failure left Scotland economically vulnerable and politically isolated. The fallout from Darien directly paved the way for the Act of Union in 1707, bind and Scotland into a single political entity, the Kingdom of Great Britain. This union was not merely administrative. It created a more powerful, unified state capable of projecting its influence globally. Now united, Great Britain turned its formidable energies outward, ready to compete on the world stage with its European rivals. The combined resources and strategic advantages of the two nations would prove instrumental in the subsequent expansion of the empire. The 18th century witnessed a relentless series of global conflicts, often referred to as the Second Hundred Years' War, as Britain battled rival empires, France, Spain, and the Dutch, across Europe and around the globe. From the frozen plains of Quebec to the fertile lands of Bengal, these wars were fought for commercial supremacy, colonial territories, and geopolitical dominance. Victories brought significant new territories into the British fold: Gibraltar, Minorca, vast parts of Canada, and numerous lucrative islands in the Caribbean. It was in India, however, that the empire found its richest and most strategically vital prize. The Battle of Plassey in 1757, a decisive victory for the East India Company over the Nawab of Bengal, shattered Mughal authority in the region. The company, no longer just a trading entity, began to rule directly. With its own private armies and a network of political puppets, it systematically built an empire within an empire, extracting immense wealth and resources that further fueled Britain's global ambitions. In North America, tensions simmered between the British Crown and its 13 colonies. Britain's attempts to tax its colonies without their direct consent, particularly after the costly 7 Years' War, ignited widespread resentment. The rallying cry of "no taxation without representation" encapsulated the growing ideological divide. In 1776, these 13 colonies declared their independence, giving birth to the United States of America after a protracted and bitter war. A loss of the American colonies was a significant blow both economically and psychologically. Yet, it paradoxically refocused Britain's imperial gaze. With the Atlantic colonies gone, Britain turned its attention away from the Americas and more intensely toward Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. This shift marked the beginning of what historians often call the Second British Empire, characterized by a greater emphasis on trade, strategic outposts, and direct rule in non-settler colonies. A late 18th and early 19th centuries saw Britain charting new frontiers. Captain James Cook, through his epic voyages, sailed far beyond known waters, claiming New Zealand and the east coast of Australia for the crown. In Australia, Britain established a new kind of colony, a penal dumping ground for its convicts, transforming a distant land into a solution for its domestic social problems. This marked the beginning of European settlement and the tragic displacement of Indigenous Australians. In the north, Canada expanded westward, with British explorers and fur traders pushing the boundaries of settlement. In Africa, fortified trading posts gradually evolved into larger settlements, laying the groundwork for future colonial expansion. And the jewel of the empire, India, only grew more vital, its resources and markets becoming increasingly central to Britain's economic prosperity. However, empire, by its very nature, breeds resistance, and the vastness of British control would inevitably lead to challenges. The illusion of effortless control was shattered by the Sepoy Rebellion of 1857 in India. This widespread uprising, sparked by grievances over British policies and cultural insensitivity, was brutally suppressed but sent shockwaves through the empire. In response, Britain dissolved the East India Company and brought India directly under Crown rule, ushering in the era of the British Raj. India would remain the empire's crown jewel, but now under more direct and watchful eyes, with a viceroy representing the monarch. Elsewhere, Britain continued to assert its global dominance. It battled Russia in the Crimean War to protect its interests in the Ottoman Empire, occupied Egypt in 1882 to secure the vital Suez Canal, and engaged in protracted and costly conflicts with the Boers in South Africa. The empire was vast, but its very size meant it was constantly stretched, requiring immense resources and military might to maintain control. The late 19th century saw technology stitching the empire together with unprecedented efficiency. The All-Red Line, an ambitious electric telegraph network, allowed London to communicate with its farthest colonies in seconds, revolutionizing imperial administration. Railroads carved new frontiers, facilitating trade and military movements across vast territories. This era also saw the rise of white settler colonies, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and later South Africa, which gradually moved toward greater self-governance, evolving into dominions with significant autonomy. However, not all parts of the empire shared this path. Ireland, often considered Britain's first colony, agitated fiercely for the same self-governance, leading to centuries of conflict and political struggle. By the turn of the 20th century, new shadows loomed. Rising industrial powers like Germany and the United States challenged Britain's global supremacy, signaling an end to its unchallenged dominance. World War I shattered the old imperial order. Over 2.5 million colonial troops served under the British flag, fighting for an empire that often denied them basic rights. While the war temporarily expanded the empire through mandates over former German and Ottoman territories, it also exposed its cracks, fueling nationalist sentiments in many colonies. World War II deepened the strain. Though Britain emerged victorious, it did so economically drained, politically exhausted, and morally challenged. The war effort had accelerated the decline of its imperial power. The wind of change swept through the colonies in the post-war era. India, the jewel in the crown, achieved independence in 1947, albeit tragically partitioned. African nations followed suit in the 1950s and 60s, as did countries in the Caribbean and the Pacific. Nations that once served the empire now demanded and claimed their sovereignty. Even Ireland, after centuries of struggle, finally achieved full independence from Britain. The handover of Hong Kong to China in 1997 marked the symbolic and definitive end of the British Empire, a poignant moment signifying the close of an era. The sun may have set on the British Empire, but its legacy, both shadow and light, still stretches across the globe. English is now the most spoken second language on Earth, a testament to its imperial spread. British legal systems, educational models, and parliamentary structures live on in dozens of nations, forming the bedrock of their governance and institutions. Modern Britain itself profoundly reflects its imperial past, home now to descendants of every continent it once ruled, creating a vibrant, multicultural society. The empire's impact is complex and multifaceted, encompassing both immense suffering and significant contributions to global development. Understanding this legacy is crucial for comprehending the contemporary world. This is History Unburied. The story of the British Empire is a vital chapter in global history, offering profound insights into power, economics, and human interaction. We encourage you to delve deeper into this complex narrative. Subscribe to our channel for more historical analyses. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on the empire's lasting impact. Your engagement helps us continue to unbury the past.